dignitaries in the room tonight. If you could please stand when I call your name if you're not already standing. Chico City Council Member Sean Morgan. From Senator Nielsen's office, Curtis Grima. Did I say that right? From Doug LaMalfa's office, Jason McCormick. And running for State Assembly District 3, Dan Logue's spot, James Gallagher. And I don't see him, but he's usually here. Larry Wall, are you here? No. And a special guy that's been getting involved with us lately, the Chico State Republican Club president, Connor DeNicker. Okay, we've got a lot of stuff to cover tonight with all these horrible... oh, you know what? I almost forgot. In the very back of the room, I'm sure you saw them when you first came in. Outstanding Americans. These are the guys that when our words quit working, they're the ones that stand up and fight for us. The Northern California State Militia is here tonight. If you haven't talked to them and gotten information from them yet, please do so. Okay, Sam Paredes, he is with the Gun Owners of California, is executive officer of them. It's a lobbyist group out of Sacramento that fights for your Second Amendment every day. Sam himself was born in East LA to immigrant parents in 1956 and is the second of three children. He attended Pepperdine University on a scholarship and graduated in 1978 with a degree in political science. He's been with the Gun Owners of California for 30 years, a lifetime member of the NRA, and I'm not going to take up any more of his time. We'll have a lot of questions and answers at the end of this, so if you could please welcome Mr. Sam Paredes.
Wow. Howdy, folks.
Howdy.
It's great to be here, and I'll tell you why. This place has a very special place in my heart. Over the past 2 years, I've had an opportunity to talk with Tea Party groups, Republican groups, conservative organizations throughout the state of California. And if some of you might remember, because I recognize some of you that were there at Scrambles 2 years ago, it was the first time that I'd ever addressed a Tea Party. And I was so enthused by what you folks had done in this county in the elections that I went and said, other groups have to learn about it. And I've been talking to groups about you folks. This is now my 120th presentation before one of these types of organizations since I first came and met with you folks 2 years ago. And I'm awfully proud to be here with you again today. You have changed my life and my perspective. And, you know, Paul Revere had a horse that he ran down Boston yelling, the British are coming, the British are coming. Me, 1964 Chevy Impala, silver, Traeger rims, SS, you know, lowrider, dingle balls, pink and purple tuck and roll, fuzzy dice, and the dog in the back whose head went like that. Still, running around trying to get everybody to wake up because our freedoms are being taken away. For those of you who don't know, Gun Owners of California, we are the oldest pro-gun political action committee in America, actually. My boss, Senator H.L. Richardson, when he was a member of the board of directors of the NRA, he was serving in the state legislature, which he did here for 22 years. And the first anti-gun bill was sponsored. And he said, we got to do something about it. So when he was back at NRA at the board meeting, he said, hey, for those of you guys who can remember like me back in the olden days when Harlan Carter and Neil Knox were running around running the NRA, he said, hey Harlan, do you care if I start one of them there political action committees? And this was just after the Nixon Watergate debacle, and both federally and every state passed laws to create campaign finance reform. And they created these political action committees, and nobody knew how they worked, but doggone it, they were going to create them. So HL figured it out. He said, hey, you care if I start one of these things? In California, they're trying to take away our guns. And the NRA board said, yeah, go right ahead, HL. And he said, as a matter of fact, here's the name and phone number for our fundraiser. A guy you might remember, his name is Richard Viggory. Very popular, conservative, and Tea Party type blogger and direct mail guru. And in the first year of operations, Gun Owners of California, we raised 300,000 individual contributions through the mail. It had never been done before. This was back in 1975. Thankfully, NRA saw, hey, that's a pretty good deal. And they got their act together and they created the Institute for Legislative Action and their Political Victory Fund. And now, as we all know, they are the big Mac Daddy pro-gun pack in the country. But we've been doing this for 38 years, fighting very focused fights. Now people say, well, Sam, what's the difference between you guys and NRA? And the difference is that we, first of all of us who work at Gun Owners are gun nuts. We're gun nuts, and then we're hunters, so we like to kill them and grill them, you know, and then we're gun nuts. And then we're also political scientists, whatever that means. You know, we decided to go into politics and figure out how this thing worked in order to fight to protect liberty, to protect and fight for our conservative principles that we've been doing since I've been around, and even before then. Now, Senator Richardson, when he came in with a guy, and his name was Ronald Reagan. He was the governor when HL came in as a freshman senator, and we learned a lot. And we learned how to work in politics, and so we focus only in politics. The only thing we do on your behalf is that we lobby the state legislature, and Gun Owners of America lobbies the United States Congress and United States Senate. And then we work in elections to help elect people who believe the way we believe, who are born from our groups to run for office, so that we never have to go looking for them to see how they're going to vote on the bill, because you always know, because they're one of us. And that's what we do. That's all we do. We don't do training things. We don't do safety training. We don't do anything else like that, because there are other organizations who have structures and people who are very good at doing all of these things. And they do it. And we support them. We go to all the FNRA dinners and all the ducks and geese and pheasants and deer, elk, sheep dinners. We eat a lot of wild game, as you can tell. But we go to all of them and we support them all, because it's all part of our fabric. It's part of what makes us what we are. But Gun Owners of California, if you just want to know, we are just that narrow tip of the spear involved in politics. I come from the legislature today, and it was a rough day today. And I will go into everything that's going and happening to us in the legislature in just a bit. But just so that I don't forget, after we break up in the back, I'm going to have our Gun Owners of California brochures, which tells you a little bit more about us. I'm going to have a legislative watch list that has all of the bills that we are following this year. That's two-sided, top to bottom. Julie would kill me if I didn't say this. Information on our upcoming fundraising banquet. We do fundraising banquets so that we can, because we don't take any government money. We exist only on the good graces of the gun owners who reside in California. We have a fundraising dinner Friday, July 19th at the Rolling Hills Casino in Corning. And if you want information, I'm going to have stuff back there. I have my business card that I want you to feel free to take. It's got my personal cell phone and my email address. If you ever have a question, if you ever find yourself in a situation that you don't know what to do or what to say, call me. Send me a text or send me an email if it's not time sensitive, and I'll be happy to respond to you. And you just say, hey, this is, Sally from the Chico Tea Party, and I will respond to you. I brought a whole bunch of these white things are window stickers if you want to stick a Gun Owners of California window sticker. I have our newsletter, Gunmageddon at the State Capitol. Tells you about everything that's happening this year, all of the bills, all of the issues, and that's what we send out to our members 4 times a year. I'm also going to have a copy that I didn't have last time I was here, Tea Party Talk by Senator Rachel Richardson. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you're arguing, you're debating and you're not winning, you feel like, oh gosh, what do I have to do? This is the manual for you. This is a book that teaches you how to be an effective debater, an effective speaker, an effective conversationalist. What would you say if you know, I just came up here and said, the Homeland Security is buying 3 billion rounds. You say, wow, that's kind of interesting. What if I came up here and I said, Homeland Security is laying a contract for 3 billion rounds, but the ammunition manufacturers that include Federal, Winchester, and Remington have informed us that all it is a contract, and they are not delivering a 6-mile-long train filled with ammunition to some Homeland Security warehouse, million-foot warehouse where they're stockpiling 223 and 40 Smith & Wesson. Gives you a little more information, huh? Gives you some sources that you might cite. You know, when you're talking to somebody and you make a statement like, you know, when things get tough, golly, you just got to keep going. And people say, oh, there he goes throwing out a cliche. But if you say, you know, when you're walking through hell, you just keep on walking. That's what Winston Churchill said. And all of a sudden people say, oh, it wasn't Knucklehead Sam that said that. This was Winston Churchill. I'm going to pay attention. And you leave an impression on their mind. So hints like that are in that book. It's really interesting. And we just republished them. They cost us $10. That's what we asked for them. And for those of you guys that are really, really gun nuts, and especially if you're a gun store or you're an attorney, this book, it's called California Gun Laws, a guide to state and federal firearms laws, put out by C.D. Chuck Michelle, the #1 top pro-gun attorney in the state of California. He represents the National Rifle Association, California Rifle and Pistol Association, and just happens to be my personal attorney. But this answers every legal question you can come up with regarding California state law and how federal law affects us here in the state of California. And of course, after this year, with 40 new bills sponsored in the legislature, he's going to have to make an addendum to it in order to let you know how things have changed. But everything that you need to know about gun laws is right here, and it's a really good resource. And he charges $25, and he charges us $15 for it, and that's what we asked for. So I'm going to have some in the back. So that's my commercial. I won't forget that way. What's happening in Sacramento? Oh my goodness. On an average year, we face 4 to 6 anti-gun bills. This year started out with 40 bills. Got down to 26, and there are still about 16 really, really bad ones that are making their way through the process. And it is really bad. So let me share with you what they will do. Number 1, AB 711 will ban hunting in the state of California, except for upland game birds and waterfowl, which you can shoot with steel shot. Other than that, anything else will be banned, period. And this is why. This bill will ban the use of any ammunition that contains lead. Now, for those of you that are hunters, you know that the ammunition, most of the effective ammunition we shoot, has a lead core with a copper exterior, and it expands, and the lead helps it to be effective and impart the energy on the animal that you're shooting in order to take it humanely. Well, They're banning that. They're saying, we ban lead in paint, we ban lead in gasoline, we ban lead in toys, lead is always bad. And we know because the condors keep getting lead poisoning, even though no one is using lead ammunition in the condor region of the state of California. So they're getting it from somewhere. And it's got to be you lousy hunters who are going out and sneaking out into the woods in the condor area and just shooting lead into the air. Because they're getting it from somewhere. It doesn't make any sense to them that lead is a natural occurring metal that just kind of appears in nature. Like, their lead is found in all 50 states, in every country. Lead is nature. There's no chemicals that they add to it, nothing. They take lead, they melt it, they turn it into ammunition, and then we shoot it back out into the nature where they found it. Now, if you listen to them, all of us are probably dying, in the process of dying right now of lead poisoning from all of the wild game that we've eaten in our lives that have been shot with lead ammunition. And they've been doing it since people have been dying in mass numbers since we've used lead to hunt with. Well, we know that not to be true. We know that you can take a duck and stand it here and force feed it lead pellets until nothing but lead pellets come out the other end, and it will not get lead poisoning. Lead has to be atomized. It has to be turned so small that it can be absorbed into the skin, at which point you might get lead poisoning. And the kind of things that we do when we hunt don't create that scenario. But the antis, they just use that as an excuse. Their goal, as you well know and can probably imagine, is to ban hunting. Cassell, the president of the Humane Society of the United States, is quoted in his book as saying, my goal is to ban hunting in the state of California and then to ban hunting in other states. Of course, if you continue to read his book, he also talks about the cruelty of owning pets. That human dominion over animal and wildlife is cruel and must be stopped, and is one of the goals of the Humane Society of the United States. Now, we think of Humane Society, we think of the dog pound or the animal control people and the rescue homes and stuff like that. The Humane Society of the United States raises actually tens of millions of dollars, and they spend less than 1% having anything to do with animals. They buy buildings, they pay themselves immense salaries, and they run campaigns against farmers, ranchers, and hunters. And their goal is to ban hunting. So, we say, well, we can use non-lead ammunition. We can use Barnes bullets. We can use the new Nosler monolithics with no lead. There are all these super new, cool copper bullets and stuff. There's a little problem with that. The federal government considers those to be armor-piercing handgun ammunition, even if it's loaded in a .30-06 or a .270 or 300 Win Mag or any rifle caliber that you can imagine, and this is their logic. And I'm sure I'm not going to surprise you that they use this kind of logic, that this is what they think. Because handguns in America, like the Contender, those of you who are shooters, the Contender and Remington XP and the Rock Merrill and a whole bunch of other handguns that have been, the AR platform, have been chambered in virtually every rifle caliber known to man, including, if you look up in YouTube, some knucklehead that made up a handgun that was 500 Nitro Express elephant gun and almost blew his head off with the recoil. Every caliber of rifle has been made into a handgun. So ATF says, since that's the case, all rifle ammunition is also handgun ammunition. And the federal government does not allow ATF to ban armor-piercing rifle ammunition. It only allows it to ban armor-piercing handgun ammunition. And since they are defining all rifle ammunition as handgun ammunition, they are now in the process of banning it, the Barnes bullets and things. And some of you will say, hey, I saw them on the shelf, just at the store. Well, Barnes bullets kind of got ahead of itself, and they went ahead and started marketing them, and they made a petition to the ATF asking them to classify their ammunition as non-armor piercing and to be used for hunting purposes. They did that 2 years ago. So that petition has been before the BATF. So the reality is that all of the copper ammunition in America right now is illegal armor-piercing handgun ammunition. And if you don't think that at some point in time the BATF is going to enforce that law, then you need to turn in your Tea Party credentials. Because their goal is to ban the use of guns anyway. So if the state bans all ammunition containing lead, and the federal government bans all non-ammunition, lead ammunition that we can use here for hunting, what does that leave us with? Bows and arrows, sticks, stones, wrist rockets. That's about it. You know, that's, they ban hunting. And if that happens, we might as well retire all of the game wardens, because they won't be out there writing tickets on poaching, or there won't be any poaching, because there won't be no hunting. There will be no hunting. And since there's no hunting, there will be no purchases of hunting licenses and fees. And there won't be any purchases of hotels and food at restaurants and guides, all of whom pay money that goes into the economy, and much of that goes into payment for the activities of the Department of Fish and Game. Also, since there's no ammunition that we can purchase for hunting in the state of California, the federal government has an excise tax on all that guns and ammunition. It's called the Pittman-Robertson Fund. And what it is that excise goes to the federal government, and then they return it to the states, and it can only be used for wildlife enhancement activities. So we get that money back, and it goes to the Department of Fish and Game for game management and habitat improvement and stuff like that. So that disappears. And since all of the environmentalists pay absolutely nothing in the way of fees to the Department of Fish and Game, now the Department of Fish and Wildlife, excuse me, they changed the name. They didn't want it to seem so harsh. They didn't want it to fish and game. That meant hunting. So they wanted us to be more sensitive. And they are now called, they changed the name officially to the Department of Fish and Wildlife. And now they want to call it Cal-Wild. Sounds like a rave party down at the Cow Palace with a bunch of people come in and dance all night or something. You know? But that is the reality. And if you know, I mentioned this to, there were 200 gun dealers in the room at a local wholesaler show. And I mentioned this to them just on the hunting aspect. And half of them said, not going to happen, Sam, come on. They're not doing that. That's not really what it does. And I told them, it is absolutely what it does. And if you want to go back and get the tapes of what the testimony was all about, and you listen to the other side and they say, we don't care. So, banning's, hunting's off the table. Now, the Department of Fish and Wildlife, you would think that they would be in favor of self-preservation and making sure that there is continued hunting so that they get the resources to have game wardens and wildlife biologists and game management and all of these activities. They actually started out in opposition to this bill because that's what they thought, but then they saw better and decided to remove their opposition and encourage the proponents of the bill to phase the bill in instead of to make it all in one shot. So they think that it's okay to ban hunting over a 3-year period of time as opposed to immediately. And we shared that with the director of the Department of Fish and Game, who was, when we sat there and talked to them about what ATF is doing and how it really truly is a gun ban, a hunting ban. And at first he was saying, I don't believe you, I don't believe you, I don't believe you. They asked, when was the last time you talked to ATF? He says, we never have. Why should we? They're the federal government. They don't have any impact on us. So we actually shared with him the petitions that have been submitted by the ammunition companies asking that their ammunition be removed from the classification of armor piercing and be put into a special category for hunting purposes. And he had one of those, oh crap, kind of a, they call it an apostrophe, but it was an epiphany, where he realized, oh, maybe these guys aren't lying to me. And why did my staff tell me that? We look at the staff, and they kind of go. So there's some folks going to the woodshed over at the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and well, they should, because they're about ready to end hunting in the state of California as we know it. That's hunting. Long guns. We got two bills. We got one bill sponsored by Senator Yee in San Francisco, one sponsored by Senator Steinberg of Sacramento. And the combination of the two bills will not only ban all future sales of ARs that have bullet buttons. You know, ARs that have bullet buttons are not considered California assault weapons by definition, according to the law. Well, they are going to change the definitions and say, oh, yes, they are. And so everybody that has an AR right now will have to register it as a California assault weapon if this bill goes into law and is signed by the governor. And from that day forward, no new guns will be sold in the state of California. Oh, but that's not all. We're going to throw in every other semi-automatic long gun that has a magazine that will come out of the gun. Ruger 1022s, M1 carbines, M1As, Ruger Mini 14s, Remington 642s or 641s, whatever the new Remington 1022 look-alike. All of those guns, all of the camp guns, whether it's a 22 rimfire, whether it's a 9mm 45, or it's a rifle caliber, they will also be defined as California assault weapons. And you will have to register those guns with the Department of Justice as a California assault weapon, pay your fee for the right to do that, and then from that point on, no new guns will be sold of that type in the state of California ever again. So are they running gun ban bills? You bet your sweet pippy they are. And we explained this to them. Now understand that the people in the legislature, they know less than nothing about guns. They don't know anything. Especially when you get into, you know, really fancy things like the difference between a clip and a magazine. You know? Oh, yeah, they envision, you know, drums on Tommy guns and things like that. And then you really trip them when you say M block. And they go, oh, you guys that are gun guys know, the M block things and stuff. And they start to sweat because they don't know what you're talking about. And yet they're running these bills. So they don't believe us. We explain it to them. We get the Department of Justice. We force them to be there, and we get them to answer the questions. And they point out that we are telling the truth, and still they proceed with this legislation. If it will only save the life of one child. It doesn't matter to them that we point out to them that Janet Reno herself, the Attorney General under Wild Bill Clinton, put out a report that said that 1.5 million times a year, law-abiding citizens in America use guns to successfully defend themselves in their homes, in their places of business, and in their travels. 1.5 million. Now what she did is she took the actual numbers that were produced by every other research organization, including the National Science Foundation, the National Institute of Justice, the Center for Disease Control, Gary Clegg. All of the researchers said it's actually closer to 3 million times a year. So let's just take her numbers. That means that here in California, 150 times a day, law-abiding citizens use guns to defend themselves in their homes. The vast majority of them are not reported. Would you report it? The vast majority, they never fired the gun. The mere fact that they had a shotgun, a pump shotgun, or a skeet gun, or a .22 pistol, or a Glock 17 with a grandfathered-in 17-round magazine, or a Thompson with a 30-round magazine, or an AR-15 with a Colt AR that they had registered as an assault weapon, and they had 30-round magazines for it. They use everything to defend themselves. And when we explain to them, what you are doing is you are saying that these 150 people per day in California, you're going to make it more difficult for them to defend themselves. if you had your way, and you members of the legislature and sponsors of this bill, every time somebody needed to have a gun to defend themselves, you would say, time out. You would walk into the scene. Home invasion guys are halfway through the door. Knives, baseball bats, and guns. You would walk up to the homeowner who took their legal bullet button AR with 10-round magazines, has ensconced themselves in their bedroom and are ready to protect their children. You would walk up to them and say, give me that gun. Here's a 5-shot revolver. That's all you need to defend yourself. Have a nice day. That is in essence what they're telling us. And our statement to them is, you have absolutely no right on God's green earth to tell me what I need to defend myself in my own home. But they say, but we've got these 10,000 murders that are committed every year. 10,000 murders in the nation. We got to do something to, and then they start listing the names. Did you hear what Mayor Bloomberg did this last week? They had a protest, and they were out reciting the names of gun victims since the shooting at Sandy Hook in Connecticut. One of the names that they mentioned was the Boston Marathon terrorist who built and exploded the bomb. You see, they don't differentiate between a justified killing where the police officers killed this punk while he was shooting back at them. That list, the justified use of force, they don't believe in it. And that is what we are facing. Okay? So now they're banning all semi-automatic rifles and shotguns if they have a magazine that comes out of the gun. Handguns. We've got one bill that says we're going to make it illegal for there to be any private party transfers of any handguns that are not on the safe handgun list. Now, for those of you who don't know, we have a safe handgun list, which is a list promulgated by the government where all manufacturers who want to sell guns in the state of California have to submit 2 guns and $5,000 per gun to a laboratory. And then the laboratory proceeds to destroy the guns. They drop them on concrete from different attitudes to see if they accidentally go off. They shoot them 600 times to see if they have any malfunctions. They play with them and do all kinds of other funny things with them. And then they check them to see if they have politically correct characteristics. Does it have a magazine disconnect? Now, a magazine disconnect, for those who don't know, is a semi-automatic handgun that when you shoot it and you drop the magazine, if there's a round in the chamber, it cannot shoot. And you would say, well, that's a safety feature. Unless you're the one who's using that gun to defend yourself and you're doing a tactical reload and you need that bullet in there while you're getting a fresh magazine to put it in there. That is why every police agency in the state of California that has one of those magazine disconnects in the guns that they buy for their duty use have them disconnected. But of course, they're going to force us to use them. Now, one of the reasons they did it is because there was an FBI officer who came in home and left his gun on the washing machine, and his 3-year-old child pulled the gun down and accidentally shot himself, even though he had pulled the magazine out. Well, the FBI officer had a semi-automatic that had that feature disabled because it was for his safety in the tragic accident. But that is not the reason you change all of the laws regarding guns. So they check if they have that, and then they wanted to have what is called a loaded chamber indicator. Now this, mind you, is a device on the gun that if you were to look at the gun, you are supposed to be able to tell if it's loaded. But you have to be able to tell without reading the owner's manual. And you know how they tested this? They would take the gun and they would put it on a table, and they would load it and put it there, and then the guys at the DOJ would bring in their wives, who are not gun people, and they would have them stand 6 feet away and say, can you tell me if that gun's loaded from 6 feet away? What kind of gun is that? Oh, that's pretty. No. How do you tell? And they say, okay, then that gun fails. So what the manufacturers have had to do is they had to put a flag in it that pops up and it says, this gun loaded when you see red. It does. If you've seen these guns, they've got these little flags. Ruger was the one that invented it, and it pops up. And if you're not really good at it, you know, sometimes it's right in your sight plane, and you don't know if it's, oh gosh, is there a shark on my gun? And originally that feature was designed by manufacturers in order to give our police officers and our military operators the ability for when they are in the dark, when they're going into a situation and they're ready to fight, they can feel with their fingers, and by touching the gun, they know that the gun is ready to operate. That's why that feature was invented. Of course, the legislature decided to turn that into a safety feature and required it on every handgun. So that's part of the test that has to go on all of them. Also, it now has to have micro-stamping. In other words, every semi-automatic gun that is sold in California, new models that are introduced, will have to have micro-stamping. That means on the head of the firing pin, microscopically engraved with a laser, and someplace else on the gun, they haven't figured it out what it is, but it's still the law. When the gun fires the bullet and the case comes out, the gun is supposed to be engraving the make, model, and serial number of the gun on the empty case, so that when police officers come and scoop up the empty rounds, they can take it to their lab and look down the $300,000 micron microscopes and read it and say, okay, we need the code book to figure out what all of these markings mean, and then decide, oh, this is a gun, this, and this, and it was purchased by so-and-so on this day from this dealer. And then they go and they find out that like 90% of all of the guns used in crimes, oh, and it was stolen. But if the gun doesn't have that feature, it cannot be sold in the state of California. It cannot be added to the safe handgun list. So we have this politically correct list of guns, and it's only 11 years old, the list. Now, they have been making handguns and selling them in California for over 100 years. So there are 100 years worth of handguns that exist in the state of California that have never been and will never be on the safe handgun list. Because the only people that can put the guns on the safe handgun list are the manufacturers who built them. And many of the manufacturers for the 102 years of guns don't exist anymore. So they can't put it on. So therefore, and there are probably many of the guns that you have at home as heirlooms. Most of your 1911s, guys and gals, you know, World War I and World War II commemoratives from Granddad and from Dad and from me or yourself, those who served and had your service auto, you will never be able to sell that legally in the state of California. You won't be able to give it to your sons or grandsons or daughters. You won't be able to give it to your wife. When you die, it dies. That's what one bill is going to do. Another bill is going to say that if you have a magazine, you know, the magazine, the portion that comes out for those who are not really going to sell it, if the magazine looks like it can hold more than 10 rounds, it's illegal. Now, what does that look like? You know, if you're shooting, you gun guys and gals, if you're shooting a 50 AE and it'll only hold 6 rounds in a magazine that looks like it should hold 36 rounds of 9mm, what's a police officer who doesn't know what he's talking about going to do when he looks at a magazine and says, well, that magazine looks like it holds more than 10 rounds. Here's a ticket. You're going to, I'm confiscating the gun, and you can get it back from the court. So if a magazine looks like it's too big, it's illegal. And that's not all. They have more they want to sell us. All of us who have all of our grandfathered magazines that we've owned since forever, all of you guys who were like me, who used to go to gun shows when you were knee-high to a grasshopper and not old enough to buy ammunition or guns, but for $5 you can buy 2 30-round Vietnam vintage AR-15 or M16 magazines, and you make a collection at home because you stack them up on your wall because they got all these cool unit colors and scribblings and stuff like that. All of those which are legal for us to own right now will be instantly illegal. And you would think that that's contrary to the Constitution. It's a violation of our 5th Amendment and our 14th Amendment. It's you're depriving me of the use of my private property, and you're not giving me just compensation. Well, they're saying you can sell it in another state. Who's going to buy a used magazine in Nevada? You know, who's going to do that? No, it is a violation, and that's part of what I'm going to tell you how we're going to fight back. But they're going after magazines, ammunition. I'll boil it down. If you sell ammunition, you need a license. If you buy ammunition, you're going to have to get a ID card, tamper-proof, that is a license that you pay up to $50 for, to give you the privilege to go to the licensed ammunition dealer so that you can buy ammunition of any kind. Bullets, if you're a reloader, bullets, you don't have to worry about primers, cases, and powder. But bullets or loaded ammunition. And then you're going to have to give your name, address, driver's license, the name of the salesman who sold you the gun, or the ammunition, the brand of ammunition, how many rounds of ammunition, and then you're going to have to give your thumbprint. But that's not all, folks. Just as an added bonus, they're going to report that to the Department of Justice on a regular basis, like every day. And then the Department of Justice is going to report that to your sheriff or chief of police to let him know what ammunition you are buying all the time. So if you're a competitive shooter, or our good folks in the back who train, and you know, 1,000 rounds of ammunition is a pleasant and relaxed morning of shooting, of training. Can you imagine what it's going to look like at the police department when they get the rookie cop who's going to get these reports from DOJ? And Sam Paredes from the Northern California militia has, in the last 2 months, has purchased 8,000 rounds of ammunition. Holy smokes, do you think I'm going to get a knock on the door by some police officer? What are you doing with 8,000 rounds of .223 or 5.56? Don't think it'll happen. It's exactly what they're setting things up for. So, ammunition, licensing, of course. You know, they say we want to make it more difficult for criminals to obtain ammunition. They go to Walmart and they buy ammo, and they go do their drive-by shooting in the stolen guns that they have. Well, this bill, all it does is it gives them, the criminals, an excuse for a road trip to Reno or to Las Vegas to go buy all the ammunition they want and come back into the state of California and still do their drive-bys or commit their crimes. And until they commit that crime, they have not committed a single crime. Of course, for most of us, what that means is, I don't want to be on another list, because we're all on the list, especially if we're here in this room. They want to know who we are. But we can also go to Cabela's or Shields or Sportsman's Warehouse or one of the other stores in Reno and buy all the ammunition and come back. And that is frankly a travesty to our California gun dealers. They are asking for us to run them out of business. Again, making guns less available. That is what they're trying to do. They're saying that they watch too many movies there in the legislature, I want to tell you. One of their favorites is James Bond. You know, they watch the latest James Bond, which I haven't seen, but they tell me that in Skyfall, there's what is called a owner-authorized gun, a smart gun. A gun that knows only its owner and no one else can shoot it. I don't know if it sticks them and gets DNA or blood sample or figures the heat temperature of the body or fingerprints or what it does. But they are passing a law in Sacramento that says the minute one of these guns is invented, fixed, and sold at retail anywhere in the world, every gun sold in the state of California will have to have that technology. And of course, that will be a patented feature, which means there will only be one gun that will be on that list. Of course, they're going to have to also put micro-stamping on it. They're also going to have to put a loaded chamber indicator and a magazine disconnect on it in order to leave that as the only option for us to buy. And all of the other guns will disappear. That's what they're doing to us. They're saying that if you own a cabin or a vacation home or two homes, Or you travel and you have multiple residences of any kind, and you keep guns there, and you have guns stolen in your home, in one of those homes, you have 48 hours to report it to the police from the time they think you should have known that it was stolen, or else you become the criminal. They're pulling out all the stops. Everything. They are saying that if you have guns at home and you leave a loaded gun out in the open and somebody comes and sees that loaded gun, a visitor into your home, and they report it, you're in violation of the safe storage laws in the 3rd degree, which I don't know what that means. And you will be a criminal. And you will be charged with a crime, because you have allowed guns to be out there that some kid might be able to pick up and create an accident or create a crime. If there's a fire in your home and firefighters put out the fire and they are doing the cleanup, and they find that there was a loaded gun that might not be loaded anymore, but there was a loaded gun, they could report it, and you can be in violation of the law. Listen, folks, the legislature is pulling out all the stops. Their crown jewel is the armed prohibited persons system. Now, this is a system that kind of makes sense until the legislature screws it up. This system says that every time somebody has committed a felony, or one of the disqualifying, there are about 30 misdemeanors that you can commit that will disqualify you from owning a gun. In the state of California, some of them will only disqualify you for 5 years, some of them will disqualify you for 10 years, and actually some of them will disqualify you for life. Misdemeanors that you do that could disqualify you from owning a gun. It makes it illegal for you to possess a gun. People who have been legally adjudicated as mentally deficient, a danger to themselves and others. Insane people. We don't want them to have guns. There is a process in the state of California that is unlike any process in the country, where hospitals, mental professionals, legal people, and law enforcement agencies can declare somebody, can identify somebody that has an issue like this, and then report it to the courts, and through due process, they are declared and adjudicated, that is a legal process, as mentally deficient, at which time they lose their gun rights. The sad thing about it is that you might not know that you have been declared, put on that list. And some of the issues, according to the definitions of what might put you in that condition, certainly PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, which is not a disease, it's a condition that is cured in the vast majority of cases and is overcome by our valiant warriors who come back, who have defended our country. And to think that these people, through these laws, can prevent them from exercising their Second Amendment rights after they put their lives on the line so that we can live free out in the sandbox and other oceans and swimming pools throughout the, and I mean that in the greatest respect, in the air and the land and the sea. This government will declare many of these people, many of our guys and gals, as ineligible to exercise Second Amendment rights. But, so we have this system for declaring people, identifying people, and reporting them to the court, and then they are adjudicated as mentally deficient. And then they go on a database that is supposed to be reported to the Department of Justice. Just like everybody who's committed a felony or who's committed a disqualifying misdemeanor, they're supposed to be reported to the Department of Justice. There's one more category. Anybody who has a restraining order issued against them. And for those of you who have experienced a divorce, or know friends who have experienced a divorce, you might have found or have heard that it's almost a regular tactic for one of the attorneys in a dispute to have a restraining order issued against the other spouse. Sometimes against both, but they do it against each other. But when you have a restraining order issued against someone in a dispute like that, you lose your gun rights. You might not have known that. Most of them, they don't know they lose their gun rights, but they lose their gun rights. Sometimes they're informed that they have to turn in their guns to a local dealer or divest themselves through a legal process of having their guns. Okay, let me go back. All three categories, the criminal, the mental, and the restraining orders, make up what is called the Armed Prohibited Persons System. So when the state of California and the Attorney General and the members of the legislature say, this list, all of the dirtbags in the state of California, that all of the criminals, we've got them all on the list, that's a bunch of sheep dip. That's just factually not the case. Only half of 1/3 are people that are truly criminals and have lost their gun rights forever. Do you think that they inform the people that have gone through their 5 years or their 10-year period and have their rights restored? Do you think they inform them of that? No. Do you think that they inform those people that have been adjudicated as mentally deficient that through therapy and stuff that they no longer stand under that designation and are free to own guns? No. Do you think that the courts report to the Department of Justice when a divorce is settled or amicable situations arise and the restraining orders are no longer in effect? Do you think that they report to those people that their rights have been restored? No. So the reality is that on this amazing crown jewel of criminal justice that we have here in the state of California, the ACTS program, where they are sending SWAT teams from the Department of Justice, teamed up with local law enforcement SWAT teams, dressed up in ninja suits, going after and knocking on doors. Almost never with a search warrant, because no judge in his right mind would issue a search warrant on these cases. Why? Because of what I just explained to you. In an interview I conducted with Sheriff Tom Basinko of Shasta County this last week on our radio show, he pointed out to me that he was speaking with one of the sheriffs from the Bay Area who has been participating in a lot of these raids. And he's had it. He said 40 to 60% of the raids we go on are against people who should not be on the list, are not on the list, haven't been on the list, are false alarms. The records that are kept by the Department of Justice are a travesty. And what's going to happen is there's going to be an accident that's going to happen. And we're going to have some of our really good law enforcement people who are doing the job that they're being ordered to do, implementing this program and going after people who they are told are criminals in possession of guns, and there's going to be an accident and somebody's going to be tragically shot. And it will be because the state of California and the Department of Justice does not take the time to clean up their act and clean up their list. Now they say there are 19,000 people on that list. And what they do is, for all of these people that get on that list, they bounce those names and addresses against, what do you think? The handgun registration list that exists. Every time you buy a handgun or you do a private party transfer, that gun is registered. So they bounce this list of people who shouldn't have guns against the people who have legally purchased guns. And they come up with names of people who, since they purchased their guns, had either committed a crime, in which case they don't have the right, or have been, from that point in time, adjudicated as mentally deficient, or have had a restraining order and they have not gotten rid of their guns because they didn't know they were supposed to. And even when those situations are cleared up, they still come in. SWAT teams come in, knock on the door. usually at dinner time or at night, waking everybody up. Boom, 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 boom. Police, let us in. And you know what? I am the #1 biggest supporter of law enforcement, good, honest, honorable law enforcement, and all of the people that have dedicated their lives to protect our lives on our cities and county streets every day of their lives. God bless them. I pray for them all the time. I really do. But this government is putting us in a situation where we have to be cautious with even those people whom we love and we respect and we honor. People need to know that unless they have a search warrant and you hear a knock on the door, don't answer. Protect your rights. Call your attorney. Don't let them in. They don't have the right to come in. Because usually when they've expended the effort to come and get all suited up, get all sweaty, sometimes get all painted and camouflaged, and come in to do one of these investigations, they're going to find something. They're going to find something. And that's not a good thing. I want to show you this video that was just done by the National Rifle Association, and it'll shed a little bit of light on it.
No, you could never have prepared me for this.
Our world has been turned upside down. We are not criminals.
We have over 20,000 people, a list of people who are legally prohibited from owning or possessing those firearms. Some of the most dangerous people on our streets.
We were getting ready for bed. Who would expect 9 officers to come to your house at 8 o'clock at night?
We were not a threat.
They were fully armed. They surrounded the house. They were absolutely ready for action.
So they're coming to your house because your name was in the registered firearm owner database and your name was in the prohibited persons database.
What we did is we merged those lists. I'm going after them.
No search warrant, because there's no probable cause.
My wife would have never let them in knowing what we know now.
They wanted to come in here and see criminal activity and take guns away from the criminals. I was not that case.
They're either going to leave with my guns or my wife.
This whole freaking apps thing is not doing anybody any good. I'm all for taking dirtbags off the street, but I'm telling you, the majority of this crap, I never even came across a hardcore dirtbag.
It's unreal. They come into my home, scare us, embarrass me in the neighborhood, and take our guns. For what?
This is where the nightmare began for the Phillips family. Lynette came here to Charter Oak Hospital voluntarily at the request of her doctor to get her medication changed.
I went in there voluntarily, and they then put me in involuntary. That's what started it.
And unbeknownst to the Phillips, Lynette ended up on the DOJ's Arms Prohibited Persons List, the APPS program.
In these cases, we're talking about someone that we know is in possession of a firearm and has been either convicted of a felony or found by a court to be mentally ill, or both. I am a nurse. Never been in trouble a day in my life. I have anxiety disorder.
The background check should tell them that I'm not a criminal. The background with my wife should have told them she's not a criminal. She's not mentally ill.
I didn't know there was a list. There was one gun registered to me. I bought for my husband years ago for Christmas. And because of that, that's why they came.
And my son and I go out. We shoot skeets. We shoot targets. Absolutely, they're going after the wrong people. I have nothing.
2 pieces of paper.
They took 3 guns. They took 2 handguns and a shotgun. They took my rights away. My Second Amendment.
This is registration that has led to confiscation.
I think it is a confiscation. I think it's confiscation under the guise of safety.
The biggest fundamental problem with this system is this false presumption that criminals are going to register their firearms in the first place. It's not working.
95, 98% of the people that I dealt with during the firearm sweep, I wouldn't even look at if I was on patrol. It absolutely is ridiculous. Apps cases. Give me a break. That is not how you curtail crime.
Did the agents give you any indication that they knew this was a mistake?
I think that they all felt that clearly we were not criminals and this shouldn't be happening. I even said, so it took you 3 months to come to my house when you were notified back in December.
At first they treated us like we were criminals, but they left knowing that we were not a threat.
But they took your guns.
But they took my guns.
It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for me when I was doing it. Out of all the cases I did, at least 100. Maybe 4 or 5 I felt comfortable with, seriously. And I'm telling you, if I stayed in the DOJ and they asked me to do another firearm sweep, I'd give them the middle finger and I wouldn't do it.
Just a waste of money, overkill. Maybe they should do some research. They would have found we were model citizens, and they would have found my wife was not mentally ill.
I think it is overbroad, overreaching, and absolutely there's an intimidation factor there that makes you not trust law enforcement too. You know, that's a slippery slope to go down.
This has always been a numbers game in terms of how many firearms they seize, but the reality is the number of accidental felons in California has gone up dramatically because of the complication of California's firearms laws. That's not justice.
$24 million of public money to get guns off the street.
We are going to now hire 36 more agents.
Why should I pay for them to take my guns away? That's what they're doing.
What they've done is raid those fees that were overpaid by people to do background checks, once again mischaracterizing the APPS program as getting violent and dangerous criminals as opposed to just people like poor Lynette.
The APPS program is the only of its kind in the United States. We need to put in place common sense laws, and they need to be universal.
California is the petri dish where they grow these bad ideas, and Kamala Harris is already shopping this program federally. The APPS program is an excuse for universal registration. She sent a letter to the vice president urging him to adopt the California program. At the federal level, and a prerequisite for that is universal firearm registration.
California shouldn't be a role model. Absolutely not.
Take it from somebody that's actually been on the street, actually arrested people, have literally been involved in thousands of arrests. What's happening with these APPS cases has nothing to do with hardcore criminals or gang members or murderers, and I've seen all those people. Do not use the APPS program.
And the arrest statistics from DOJ bear this out. There are very few prosecutions resulting from the APPS program.
I think we're at a crossroads now to where people are going to have to educate themselves about what they can and can't do when they're confronted by law enforcement, especially in your own home. I mean, that's the premise of the Fourth Amendment.
Looking back, there will be no officers coming into this house unless they have a warrant.
I feel I was violated. I was guilty until proven innocent, is the way it's worked in this case. This is justice. I'm just so disillusioned by our government right now.
We were definitely violated. My rights have been taken away. There's no way for me to protect my home. I cannot protect my family.
They took something from me, and now I feel like I'm fighting against the government in order to have my rights restored, our guns given back to us.
There is no trust. If it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone.
I'm actually very scared. They took my sense of security. They took everything I thought this country was about. It's now tainted.
I always wanted to do that. You know, you see that in the movies where the... Folks, and I will answer your question.
I have a question.
I will have, hang on a second. Ladies, if you went to your doctor and you said, and they diagnosed you with postpartum depression, and we know that those cases can be very emotional and very, very deep, and some gals, they just, it's a serious thing, and if they were to say something like, I just want to die, that alone will put them on the APPS list. They can be rewarded for that. Postpartum depression. Stress at work. You go on disability for stress, you can be put on that list. And you might not know that it is. Yes, sir, your question.
Okay, the question is, our illustrious vice president advocating taking your double-barrel shotgun in the dark, stepping out on your deck or your porch, and firing into the dark Wouldn't that be a misdemeanor or a felony if you hurt somebody?
That would be a felony discharge of firearm and endangering life. So,
Well, we know our leaders stand.
well, you know, if you look under in the dictionary, under the definition of moron, you might find our vice president's picture right next to it.
So where is the Senate bill, Senate Bill 17, where is it in the legislative process? Is it
It's
on
been
the
signed into law. $24 million are now allocated for the enforcement of this program. And that money is coming from our DROS fund. That's the fund that every time we buy a handgun or a rifle or a shotgun, we pay for our own background check. You know, it ends up being like $30 and $14 of that goes to your actual background check. Well, we have been overpaying to that fund so much that they have accumulated a $24 million surplus in that fund. So of course, being the government, holy smokes, there's money we can tap into to pay for this program. Now, what they're doing, as Kamala Harris pointed out, they're hiring 34, 35 agents. They happen to be the same agents that they laid off right after Jerry Brown was elected, because for budget purposes, of course, that agent unit supported Meg Whitman in the election, and it was funny how they just disappeared. And these are the guys who used to be investigating the apps list. And now they're going to spend $24 million to hire these new agents in order to confiscate guns from law-abiding citizens. And make no mistake, they are trying to come up with the biggest number of guns they possibly can for show. The guns that they took from this couple, who were no more criminals than the man in the moon, they're stacking up there with a pile of other guns to say, look how good a job we are doing. You had a follow-up question?
No, that wasn't my question.
And-
I was wondering about the lead bullet then, where
Oh.
that was in the process. Is it on the governor's desk?
No, there is nothing on the governor's desk. Every bill that I've talked about today, and the bills are listed in the sheets that I have back there, there were Senate bills and there were Assembly bills. They made it through their first house. That means they went to their committees, to the appropriation committees, and then to the floors. And now they've crisscrossed and then they're in the second house. And right now they're in the process of making it through the committees. AB 711 just made it out this last week out of the Senate Natural Resources Committee. And they had full testimony, all the information, and they basically said that's when the Department of Fish and Wildlife stabbed us in the back. Unbeknownst to us, because they were in opposition on our side. And then they announced to the world that, oh, we're removing our opposition, and we suggest that you implement it over a 3-year period to give the industry a chance to catch up. Well, they can't catch up on something that's illegal. Yes, sir.
I can't help but marvel how brilliant it all is. They've started with this years ago, and it's all tied in just perfectly. I remember a few years ago they had an assembly bill for us to vote on that said that they wanted to use background check fees for any purpose they wanted, and that passed. And then the thing with this ammunition ban, it ties in perfectly. The timing is just perfectly with their 3 billion ammo purchase orders. So we can't buy ammo now, even if we wanted to, before it goes into effect.
You're right to a certain extent. The contract that was let out by the Department of Homeland Security has not been fulfilled. They didn't receive shipment of 3 billion rounds. What it is a contract that all of the agencies can buy against. So, Border Patrol for training, they're going to order 875,000 223s for X training program, and they're buying it off of that contract at that price. That contract is good for 5 years, and either all of the law enforcement agencies that are under Homeland Security will be buying off that contract, and once they reach the total number, then they have to do another contract. Or the time date, if at a certain time date, if they haven't purchased all the ammunition that they have at a contract price, then they get to write a new contract anyways. I've spoken myself with the manufacturers, Federal, Winchester, Remington, and they're saying, Sam, only 12% of the revenue that we make comes from contracts to the government. Only 12%. All the rest, 78%, comes from our commercial sales. Do you think we're going to do something to screw our commercial sales? Because they're thinking only of the bottom line. Do you think we're going to do anything to screw our commercial sales? And they're saying absolutely not. And screw is the word that they used. It's not usually part of my vocabulary.
So you're saying that the government's ammo purchases didn't create this shortage?
Yeah. No. You know what created the shortage? We did. We actually did. Come on. In the past, when we used to go to the gun store, you're going to go shooting, you go out and buy a box of 22. A box of 22, you know, $1.25 a box of Yellow Jacket or Stinger or something like that. And then you go shooting and you come back and you buy with it. Now, when was the last time you actually bought a box and you didn't go out and buy a brick? Or instead of a box of 9mm or 223 or 5.56, you're now buying them, not 2 or 3 boxes, but I'm doing it. I'm buying it by the case. I never used to buy it by the case. And Americans all across the plain are doing that. And we have disrupted the chain. Our ammunition manufacturers report to me, all 3 of them have said, we are running at 140% of what we've run in the past in manufacturing. We are pumping out more ammunition than we have ever pumped out before. And they have not built any new facilities. As a matter of fact, Winchester, Federal, and Remington are operating their main manufacturing facilities. And when you include Lake City, which is the location where they make all of the ammunition, all 3 of them work together to make all the ammunition for the military. They are working in the same facilities that have been there since World War I. They've just upgraded the machinery, and they're making it faster and better. But you walk in there, you're still walking in on a floor that's full of water. It's full of water to walk in, so that nothing can go down and spark and cause a problem. Yes, question?
Yeah, I'm guilty as charged. When Obama was elected the first time, I threw my American flag in the garbage can and ordered $7,000 worth of ammunition.
See? And you know what? We're starting to see the crack on the AR-15 market. We're starting to see more of them come back. Because just in this room today, I spoke with several people who informed me that they had multiple AR-15 lowers just stashed away and then picked up, make sure they have some sort of an AR-15. And I haven't heard anybody say that they have an AR-10 in 308. But we are buying guns at a record pace. In my church alone, the #1 most popular people, because people know what I do with guns, people come and say, Sam, I want to get a gun. Okay, this is what you go talk to these people. The #1 group of people that are coming and asking me right now are elderly, seasoned ladies. Single ladies are coming and saying, Sam, I want to buy a gun. I want a CCW. And I said, you know what a CCW is? She said, no, but I want one. I want one. and they're coming in. We are buying guns at a world record pace right now. Smith & Wesson, Ruger, all of the manufacturers, you look at their stock, it's through the roof. It's through the roof. They're making the guns, we're buying them. They're making the ammunition, we're buying them. I'm going to go ladies first, right here second, and back here. And I'm going to open it up for questions. That's what I want. I don't want anybody to leave here with any question on their mind that at least I haven't given you some gobbledygook for as an answer. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Okay, I'm going to ask you to hold on your questions while I answer this. Every one of the bills that they have sponsored, every single one of them, greatly and immensely overreach on the Second Amendment, or the Fifth Amendment, and the 14th Amendment. We have attorneys, I like to say, stacked like cordwood, for January 2nd of next year to file lawsuits for any law that is signed by the governor. Now, I'm sure that not all these laws will be signed. Who knows what Jerry Brown's going to do? If you know, I need your crystal. I want to look at your crystal ball,
because we do it like this. But the fact of the matter is, all of the bills are so bad, and he signs some, and he vetoes others. It's like saying, I'm protecting you from syphilis, but I'm going to give you gonorrhea. You're not going to get typhoid, but you're going to die of cancer. Those are the options that the governor is going to be giving us. But still, every one of these bills is a far overreach on the Second Amendment. We are prepared to go to court on every one of these issues. And we're going to ask the courts to stay the laws, like we did with AB 962, the first ammunition registration bill, the handgun ammunition registration bill that the court finally said is unconstitutional. And we're going to ask the courts to not allow these laws to go into effect while they are in court. So we are physically going to be changing our focus from not only the legislative thing, because those boogers never go away. They're worse than cockroaches. You can unelect them, you can squish them, you can scratch them, you can bug spray them, and they just keep coming back. So we know we're going to have to deal with them in the legislature. We're going to work in the elections, and we're going to put a huge focus on the legal aspect and making sure that we have all of the best attorneys lined up. As a matter of fact, I'm sure that Brad Dacus, I don't know if he's come up and given you folks a presentation from the Pacific Justice Institute, one of our conservative stalwarts who is probably, well, you love it if you don't know him. He's the guy who sues the schools and sues the unions and sues for all of the freedoms that we're supposed to have. They have committed to providing pro bono attorneys from throughout of the state of California on any case that we ask them to be participants in. Of course, the lead attorneys will be people like Chuck, who you saw in this video, and other constitutional stalwarts who will be fighting the fight for us, and we will be doing everything. We're going to make sure that they don't get hangnails, colds, that they're fed, that their laundry is picked up. We're going to make sure that they're the most comfortable people in the world, and they spend 100% of their time fighting our legal battles for the courts. That's what we're going to do, and we're going to win. We have a pretty good track record. Heller, Supreme Court for the first time in history said the Second Amendment is an individual right held by every citizen of the United States. Although they said that the government could not prevent you from having guns in your home in a manner that didn't make them immediately accessible to you for self-defense. Because the lawsuit was that the Washington, D.C., that the only way you could have a gun, if we gave you a permit, is it had to be disassembled and in a locked safe. Then if you heard a criminal knock on the door, you can go, oh man, come on, what's that? And then you guys in the back would probably do a really good job of slapping your AR, except they didn't allow any ARs. But your 1911s or one of your other guns. And then you could use it for self-defense. Well, the court said that's unconstitutional, except the court could only rule in Heller that applied only to federal enclaves. But then we went to court in McDonald versus Chicago. And we went back to the Supreme Court because Scalia kind of said, hey guys, come back. We have more to do here. So we filed that lawsuit. All of the pro-gun community was involved in that thing. The court came back and said, not only do American citizens have the right to keep and bear arms, the people have the right to keep and bear arms, and it is an individual right. But it is such an important right to the ordered liberties of American citizens that not even state and local governments could infringe on that right. So that meant not only federal enclaves, but every other government was now under the Second Amendment. Now, the justices again said, we know you guys are going to have to come back because now we are going to explore how that means. Scalia himself said that we know that we're going to have to continue to visit this because the Second Amendment says you have the right to keep and bear arms. Right now we are dealing with keeping arms in your home in Heller and McDonald. But it also says bear arms, and no rational definition of bear can mean anything other than carrying your guns outside your home. That we have that right, and we are going to explore that in future lawsuits, and that is what we are working on. Number 3, first of It is not. It is not in the public. It's considered investigative materials and not a part of the Public Records Act. So
It's about Department of Justice, not telling you.
yeah, you know what? If you don't know and you want to know because you might have had something in your life some time ago, some folks are finding out, gee, I got a misdemeanor because I slugged a guy in a bar fight, you know, when I was a 19-year-old in college, and I don't know if I've lost my rights. You can actually go to the Department of Justice website and have a background check done on yourself. And they check and you say, you're clean, or you have this issue. In which case, you act appropriately. You investigate whether the reason I might have lost my rights is because I was under one of these 5-year prohibitions or 10-year prohibition, and now I'm beyond that, and now I need to petition to make sure they restore my rights. Or that issue was wiped out by the courts years and years and years ago, and it just hasn't caught up to DOJ. So yes, you can do that without any danger, without any penalty. You can just go to the Department of Justice website, Firearms Division, and you can do a background check on yourself. Okay, now there was a question here, and then the lady over here.
Yeah, I don't know how true this is or not, but one of my physicians, she was warning me that sometimes they prescribe a medication that can be used for multi-purposes, like as a sleep aid and or anxiety. And if that drug can be used for both, you might find yourself on that list.
That is absolutely correct. And as a matter of fact, what we have done.
You got to be careful how they define what's on the prescription.
Yeah, you know, what it does is it asks us, it begs us to be cautious about which medical professionals we choose to conduct business with. Because some of them may be very anti-gun. And as a matter of fact, anytime they issue one of these drugs, they can report it, and you can be put on that list without you knowing.
So it is true.
It is absolutely true.
All right.
It is absolutely true. So as a matter of fact, that is one of the issues that is of most contention, is that somebody has been put on for a sleep aid or something that is also used as an anti-anxiety
Right.
medication, and
That's my situation.
Yeah.
That's why it was, yeah. And I know there's a lot of elderly people in here, and a lot of them probably use sleep aids.
so you know what the government is doing is it's making it us not want to go to seek help when we know we need help. If we need advice, counseling, we should go seek it. But the government is setting up a system that makes us not want to do that because we might lose our gun rights forever. That's a shame. But we are going to fight back in the courts. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, question.
Also.
All of these attorneys, what do you do about activist judges?
That's a very, very important question to ask, and I'll tell you why. There are a lot of people in the gun community who say the Second Amendment is this and that and the other, and the laws are this and the rulings are this and that and the other, and it's plain, it's black and white. Well, we know that there's as much politics in the courts as there are in the legislature. You go and you sit in on any of the if you were a fly on the wall in any of our district courts where the judge in charge has all of his judges together and they start handing out which cases they're going to take, they know, okay, this is a liberal judge, this is a conservative judge, this is a moderate judge. This judge has the expertise because he comes from a farming background. This judge, he's a Harvard grad and knows business or something like that. And that all happens, that's for sure. We understand that, and that's how come the case having to do with the AB 962, the handgun ammunition registration bill, we went to Fresno to file the court because we know the judges that are on the court. We met several of them at FNRA dinners, at the Rocky Mountain Eat Sheep Foundation, and we're like this, that the presiding judge would give the cases to the vast majority of judges in some of these districts, some of these courthouses that are good judges. So we do work even there. It is not a, just a simple thing, we're gonna go down to the county courthouse and file a lawsuit. No, there's a whole lot of background and research that goes on when we file a case. Where we file it is every bit as important as when we file it and how we file it.
The other question I had was, I read somewhere, and I don't remember where, that you are personally in favor of the universal background checks. Is that true?
That I am personally in favor of the universal background check? Absolutely. I don't know, I'd like to know who said that, because that is so far from the truth.
Okay.
As an organization, Senator Richardson will reach me from El Dorado County right now and slap me down with a lightning bolt.
Well, then that answers my question, because if you were, I was gonna ask you why.
No. Universal background check is a euphemism for universal firearms registration with only one purpose, and that is to achieve what they're doing with the apps, and that is confiscation. There is no rational, honest reason to have registration. And the universal background check is a fancy word. The fact of the matter is that most sales nationwide have a background check done either voluntarily or by law. Federal government doesn't have to stick its nose in it. Those states where it isn't taking place, they have the lowest crime rate of anybody else, so why are you messing there? And it isn't like they're finding, South Carolina guns being used in commissions of crime in Las Vegas, Nevada. So it's not, no, absolutely not. I don't think frankly, I believe that the Second Amendment is our constitutional to conceal weapons permit, is our registration permit. It's not a permit even, it's a declaration that we have those rights that were given to us by our Creator prior to the establishment of this government, and is enumerated in our founding documents. And it can't be any plainer or simpler than that. Question back over here?
I've been told that on many medical questionnaires for our children and new patients, new doctors that you might go see, that there are very pointed questions on those questionnaires. One of them is, does your home have firearms? Does your father beat you? Has your father ever been in jail? Questions like that. Is that true?
Absolutely, it's true. Now, there's no legal basis for that to be on. As a matter of fact, President Obama, when he did the executive orders, the 26 or 29 executive orders, on one of them he said, I want to make it clear to health providers that nothing in Obamacare prevents them from asking questions about guns. There's a little problem, and it's called Harry Reid, the President Pro Tem of the Senate. He actually carried the amendment that we sponsored, Gun Owners of America sponsored, and conned him into carrying. And the story behind that would take hours, but it was pretty funny. And in order to get something that he wanted, he included this amendment that writes into the Obamacare Act that it is illegal for doctors to ask questions about firearms ownership. It is part of the law. Okay? Now, a lot of doctors ask it through their insurance groups and all of that, and you don't have to answer that. And, parents, encourage your kids that, hey, if a doctor asks you any of these questions, feel free to tell them, really that's none of your business. And depending on the maturity of your parents, of your children, you might have a conversation and say to them, you know what? Depending on how you might answer this to the doctor, police might come and take me away. Or your mom away, because we got mad at you one day. And that's the reality of questions like that. They create the background for intervention in our lives and the way we raise our families and kids. Yes?
Are the federal government trying to take everything away so they can just come in and take over us?
You know what? The fact of the matter is, everything that they are doing about guns is all about control. Because it makes no sense. We know that in every state where they have a lot of guns, that they have the lowest crime. We know in all of the communities where CCWs are issued to any law-abiding citizen who wants them, they have almost no crime. So all of the justification. We actually had one of our witnesses go to the legislature and present to them. He went up there and sat there and said, you all know about the Stockton school shooting in 1989, where Patrick Purdy, using an AK-47 with Hezbollah scratched into the stock with a knife, and he shot 5 kids and administrators, killed them, and wounded a bunch of other kids. Well, I am one of those kids, he said. Rob Young. He testified for him. I'm one of those kids. I still have part of that AK-47 bullet in my chest and in my ankle. And I'm here to tell you that if you continue to push these bills that you are pushing right now to ban semi-automatics, to register ammunition, to get rid of high-capacity magazines, or what we call standard capacity magazines, all of these bills, you're going to create more victims just like me. And I'm here to tell you, I don't want that to happen. As a matter of fact, I don't want it to happen so badly that I became a police officer. And I walked the streets in Union City as a police officer to go after the real dirtbags. And I'm the first one to tell you that law-abiding citizens with guns are never what we are afraid of. And they sit there and go, oh, well, that's nice, but to save the children, we're going to go ahead and pass this. Let's go. This lady was a nanosecond first, and then here, and then here. Yes. What is the what? Ammunition that's kept reasonably well has a very long shelf life. Except for some of the oldest stuff that you wouldn't want to shoot because it's now a collector's item. The value is that it was back in the day when they made the change from black powder to smokeless powder. Some of that old ammunition, old military ammunition is very valuable as a collector's item, but even that has a very high rate of use, and it works. So if you just as a tip, keep ammunition in a so it doesn't get super hot, doesn't get super cold, doesn't get wet, in a safe or in a closet where it's
Seal a meal.
temperature controlled facility. It'll last a very, very long time. Well, the case of ammunition, the way I shoot, ma'am, is when I go to Modoc County to hunt squirrels, that's about an hour and 45 minutes worth of shooting. When our buddies get together and we go out and sometimes, you go and some of the farmers out there will say, did you run out of ammunition? Oh, here's another case. Please keep shooting the squirrels. So now there was a question here. And then
actually, I have a suggestion. The legislators will continue to push these anti-gun laws as long as they have no accountability, no responsibility, no consequence. They can do this with impunity. What we need to pass is something from the people in the form of a proposition that said if you aid or abet in the passage of a law that is unconstitutional, then you bear personal civil liability to the extent that it damages the people.
That's
Yeah.
And there is only one problem, is that the Constitution itself does not allow us to sue an elected official because he's being stupid, because he's being dumb, because they're being unconstitutional in enacting. They give that responsibility to us to unelect them in order to do that, and that's in California, we couldn't do it as a simple initiative, constitutional initiative. That would be changing the core of the Constitution. It would require a constitutional convention to change that ability. I'm the first one to tell you. You swear, these folks go in and swear the fidelity of the Constitution of the United States, the state of California, and then it's like they read it on a toilet paper roll or something like that, It's disposable. And you ask them to recite it again, and they say, give me the paper. So you're right. Our founding fathers, They set up a system so that we would be actors and be involved and go after it. And you know what? Like I said earlier, the 120 different groups I've had a chance to speak to, and you're not the problem, except that we are all at fault for allowing our country and our state to get where it is. It happened on our watch. Now we can say, okay, well, I'm cutting and running, I'm going to Nevada or Idaho or Utah or something like that. And if you do, and you've been a part of the fight, you're a part of the Tea Party, you're a part of NRA, you're a part of one of these groups that has been fighting for a long time and you're tired, thank you for your service. With honor and grace, I hate to see you go. But if you have to go, Godspeed in your new land. Those of us who call California, we have no place to go. Nevada, I love Nevada. I don't want to live there. That's not home. Wyoming, I love the elk, I love the deer. That's not home. This is home. And we have an opportunity to fight back. And we have two examples and opportunities to fight back right now. We have two special elections going on. One, Andy Vidak running against Leticia Gomez in the 16th Senate District. Goes from Bakersfield up to Fresno. This is a hardcore Democrat district that we missed winning by 186 votes in the primary election. There were 6 Democrats running, they split the vote, and still Andy almost got 51% of the vote, and we would have won. Would have ticked the other side out like nobody's business. So now he's running in a general, and it's just 1 and 1 heads up. Turnout is going to be only 22%, probably, maybe lower. But if we can get every gun owner, every Tea Party patriot, every veteran, everybody who loves this country and wants to fight back to turn out in that district to vote, we can win that race. We've got a program in place right now to identify every NRA member, every gun owner's member, every gun-toting person that we can identify. We're identifying them in that race. We're going to make sure that they're registered to vote, and if they're not, we're sending them flyers as to how to register to vote online. You can do it online instantly. Piece of cake. You're done in 90 seconds. You can do that. We're going to let our folks know to do that, and then we're going to ask them to register to vote by mail. EVM voters. Why? Because it's going to make it way easier for us to contact them. We know when their ballots will be mailed and delivered to their home. That same day, we are going to make sure that they get a piece of mail from us that is a sample ballot, encouraging them to vote pro-gun, and just take Andy Vidak, and sign your name, send it in, and you've done your duty. We are going to, for those people that are not vote by mail, we're going to put together as many volunteers from all over the state of California to show up down in this district and physically go and knock on the doors of the people that we know are registered to vote pro-gunners and say, we need your vote. Can you jump in the car? I'll take you down so you can cast your vote, and I'll bring you back home. And we'll have, NRA hats and gun owners hats so that they know that they are with gun people. We're not doing this with the party. We're not doing this with the campaign. We're doing this as gunners. And we're all working together to make that happen. We're going to do the same thing in an assembly race down in the San Gabriel Valley. That's the even worse district. But when the turnout is only going to be 20%, that means all we have to push is 4,000 or 5,000 votes, 6,000 votes, and we win the election. That's nothing. You here in Chico know more than anything about how hard you can work and you can defeat vastly liberal, former socialist board of supervisors by working hard and sending up a conservative. And it's because of the work that the Tea Party did right here in Chico. So as we develop this in the next couple of weeks, because the election is July 23rd, I'm going to make sure that the Tea Party here has that information. We're going to make it available on our website. We'll make it available on the Tea Party website and through the emails. And anybody who wants to participate, either by getting some folks together on that election night, doing a road trip, going down to Fresno to help win that seat, or from their homes, if we can send them a list of pro-gun voters down there And with your own cell phones, most people now don't have no long-distance calls on their cell phones. You can say, hi, I'm a Tea Party member, or I'm an NRA member, or I'm a gun owners member up here in Chico, and I just want to encourage you to go out and vote. Just, we have to elect Andy Beidak. He will not only be your state senator, he will be my state senator up here in Chico. And we can get all of those people there, and if we do that, and we win this election. Why is this election so important? Right now, as you well know, the Democrats have 2/3 majority of both houses. If we win that election in a hardcore Democrat seat, that is, a seat that where the sitting incumbent quit because he was about to be investigated for criminal finance activities. So he cut and run and opened up this seat. But if we pick up, that means we are right at the margin for 2/3. That means that next year, any seat we pick up, we recapture the 2/3, and they can no longer jam changes to Prop 13. They can no longer jam urgency votes to raise taxes. They can no longer do a lot of things. That's why this seat is very important. Not to mention, Andy Beidak, if he lived up here, you'd look at him and say, hey, Andy, because he's one of us. Farmer, small businessman, lawyer, gun guy, hunter, family guy, church-going guy, really just one of us. And we can make a difference. So that's how we can make some real, honest-to-goodness, tangible gains and make progress to take this step back, one step at a time. Question?
You can say the list APP or APP.
APP, Armed Prohibited Persons System. The list is 40 to 60% wrong. People are on that list that shouldn't be on that list.
Armed prohibited.
Armed Prohibited Persons System. Yes.
Does your organization ever try to sponsor the legislation to try to clean it up?
Oh, we've sponsored legislation every year. But you see, when you're not in control, our legislation is heard in its first committee. It doesn't make it out of committee. They give us 2 minutes, two people 2 minutes to testify on our behalf. Like this year, we sponsored a bill that would make California shall issue state. Senator Brian Jones of San Diego County carried that. We carried restoration of open carry across the board. Lots of bills, and we actually have those bills on the list of bills that we sponsored. And they're introduced, and they look at us like we have 3 eyes and green hair. You know, they don't want to listen, and they just put it down. Nope. Are there any other questions? Yes.
You kept us enraptured for quite some time this evening, and your delivery has been excellent. So long term, what I'd like you to think about is running for the legislature yourself.
You are so kind. I tried that one time. I tried it in 1988. I ran in Sacramento County when I lived in Folsom for assembly. And I ran against a sitting county supervisor who was a pretty conservative guy. And I came within a few thousand votes of defeating him. He spent $500,000 and I spent $100,000. It was an amazing experience. The guy ended up being Dave Cox, who became the minority Republican leader, who was one of our champions on the tax issue. He came to me and we made peace, and he helped every way he could on the gun issue. And right now it's far more important to make sure that as many of our folks know the truth about what's going out there, and sharing the information with anybody who will listen, and try to get them involved and engaged. That's far more important than me having to put up with those knuckleheads down at the state legislature. Because I tell you, it would drive every one of you folks stark, raving, crazy when you listen to what it is they talk about and what they do across the board on the issues. I get to leave that place whenever I feel like it. They make them stay. Yes.
Okay, I would like to recommend to everybody in the room that has Dish Network, channel 395, Sportsman Channel, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, NRA Cameron Company.
Yep.
It's an hour well spent.
Yeah, Cam and Company is a super good show. And even up here in Chico, if you, I don't know if it actually reaches here, but you can do iHeartRadio on Money 105.5 in Sacramento. Josh Deezer from Just Guns and I do an hour radio show with Julie Benson from our office. And we talk about what happened this week with legislation at the legislature. We talk to sheriffs, we talk to industry people, and every week we have Chuck Michelle giving us another tip on what gun owners can do to protect their rights. You know, if anybody has any other questions that you didn't have answered, or that, you know, 80% lowers or whatever it is, see me afterwards and I'll be happy to help you out. But folks, don't give up. Remember the first time I came to this Tea Party, there were, what, 35, 40 people in scrambles? And look at this now. And I'm telling you, this is happening all over the state of California. Groups where I've gone and made a presentation to with 5 people are now 50, 60, 70 people. And if you don't know, if you say, no, we have to get bigger, I'm gonna leave with this request that I make of you. Next time you hear somebody out there complaining about taxes, guns, regulation, business laws, anything like that, don't feel like you have to explain to them why the Illuminati and the Bilderbergers and the Trilateral Commission are controlling the worldwide economy and forcing us into the slavery that we exist as mere people of the world. But just say this, hey, listen, a bunch of us get together once a month at the Elks Lodge on Tuesdays. And we have people come and talk to us about that. Why don't you come? We get together at 7 o'clock and we have somebody, and they talk to us about taxes or guns or something like that. Come on by. And they'll come. And before you know it, it's not, you double, triple, you've already done that. But you grow even more. You continue to grow exponentially. Just do that. It's no harder than that. Never be afraid to stand up and talk about the truth. To give somebody a pearl of truth because you love this country. I know you're not going to give up. I'm not going to give up. Or you wouldn't be here. I know many of you have sacrificed a great portion of your life serving this country. To those, I personally am eternally grateful. But for those of us who haven't served in the military to defend this country and the freedoms that we have been blessed with by our Creator, through the wisdom of our founding fathers, we have to be soldiers and Marines and sailors and airmen inside the borders of this country and this state. And we have to dedicate a portion of our life. We have to sacrifice in order to fight for freedom, or else we're going to lose. And that's not a good thing. Thank you for letting me come up. I really
Small announcement. If this wasn't enough gun talk for you, Lars Larson, nationally syndicated talk show host, will be at Paredes Elks Lodge on Thursday night at 6 p.m. talking about this and the rest of the Constitution. He'll be on KPAY Thursday morning, or Thursday afternoon rather, and then he'll be in Paredes at 6 p.m. at the Elks Lodge Thursday night. So thank you all for coming out. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good night.